We are live.
Good morning, guys. This is Miss Vicki Starnes. She works at the Crawford W. Long Museum over in Jefferson, and she is giving us her time generously today to talk to us about the history of Crawford Long and his contributions to medicine. So let's give her attention. Miss Starnes, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here this morning. I know that Mr. David recorded a video last year, I believe, for Heritage Day. So some of you may have already heard about Dr. Long and what his accomplishment was and what his discovery was. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about his medical discovery, not as much about that, but more about some monuments and tributes that were made to him, and about the museum, and just a little bit more that you may not have heard. This is the museum. Has anyone here ever, can I see a show of hands, has anyone ever actually visited the museum? Okay, about 3 or 4 of you have been to the museum. Well, just as a side note, today is Freebie Friday. I don't know what time y'all get out of school, but if you want to go to the museum this afternoon, no admission. So be sure to stop by. We do that 4 times a year, once a quarter. But you know, who was Dr. Long? He was not your ordinary doctor, country doctor. He was really well educated for his time. He graduated from the University of Georgia, which was known as Franklin College at the time. He was only 19 when he graduated, and then he came to Jefferson to study under Dr. Grant, who was the town doctor at the time. And he decided he wanted to pursue a formal medical education, so he left and went on horseback to Lexington, Kentucky to start his medical degree or medical education, and then he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania and graduated in 1839. And he did something that was unusual back then, but is actually a requirement today. He went to New York, and he walked the halls of the hospital to, which would be like the equivalency of a residency today. So, and then he came back to Jefferson, and he bought the practice of Dr. Grant. So he wasn't your ordinary country doctor. He was really well educated. Less than 10% of the doctors back in the 1800s even had a formal medical degree. So his claim to fame, obviously, is the being the discoverer of anesthesia. He did the first painless surgery in his office in Jefferson, where the museum is today. It was a wooden building at the time, where the 2-story brick building is today. But he removed 1 cyst off the back of the neck of James Venable. He was his patient, and he inhaled sulfuric ether on a cloth, and then he removed the cyst, and he didn't even realize it had been done. He was like, when he kind of woke up, he was like, when are you going to start? And he showed him in his hand. He's like, I'm already finished. He removed it. So that was the first painless surgery, and it was performed on March 30th, 1842 in the little town of Jefferson. But before the museum was there were some other tributes made to Long. And in 1910, the obelisk monument on the square in Jefferson was dedicated, and that was dedicated during the 61st annual meeting of the Medical Association of Georgia. And the meeting was held in Athens, and the attendees actually boarded the Gainesville Midland steam train and to come to Jefferson for the unveiling of that monument. And then in 1921, there was a monument unveiled on the UGA campus in Athens to honor Dr. Long. And then if anyone has ever been to Washington, D.C., in the Statuary Hall at the Capitol is his statue. It was dedicated in 1926. There's 2 statues that represent every state, and Dr. Long is the Georgian, one of the Georgians that was selected. And that same statue of him is an exact replica that stands on the courthouse in Danielsville, because he was born in Danielsville. And then in 1959, a bust was unveiled at the Georgia Capitol. So you can see there were several, before the museum was ever even around, there were lots of tributes made to him. And then another tribute in April of 1940 was he was recognized on a 2-cent stamp. And the first day cover release, the Atlanta Journal actually estimated that there were 10,000 people that came to Jefferson and crowded the square. You can see in the slide the crowd that came for the release of the first day of the stamp. He was recognized in the Famous American series that also recognized James Audubon and Dr. Walter Reed, among some others. But the biggest monument or memorial to him, obviously, was opening the museum. That was dedicated in 1957 when it opened to the public, and it's on the site where his office was. It was a wooden building at the time when he did the first painless surgery, but the museum today is on the site of that. And then in 1986 and 87, the museum enlarged to include the Pendergrass General Store and the Stovall building. So it's a 3-building complex today. And then this is the inside of the Long Gallery, and you can see that the diorama is still the focal point. It was actually created for the opening of the museum in 1957. And if you think about that, in 1957, a diorama was kind of like state-of-the-art technology. There was no computer stuff like we're dealing with today. But so this gallery houses a lot of his personal family heirlooms, his gold pocket watch, his wedding tie. He enjoyed reading Shakespeare. It has his complete lexicon of Shakespeare's plays. So there's a lot of really interesting artifacts in there. And then in the Pendergrass Store Gallery, we have a recreated doctor's office and apothecary, and that has, you know, a collection of medical instruments and apothecary bottles, and also home goods. I know that the one picture here, you'll see some actual real artifacts later that we have on display in the store as well. You know, farming, housekeeping tools. And then upstairs we have the Development of Anesthesia exhibit, and that basically showcases almost 100 years of the development of anesthesia, from the early inhalation, the handheld inhalation, and then on to the different machines. And the latest one we have is really not even the most current. It's only like 2002. But, you know, we really are more than just a museum. We're more of a cultural center for the community. We have evening workshops. We have gallery play days during the summer. These are some posters from like when we did fairy gardens workshops or painting pet rocks. Here's some pictures of people etching glass and making the fairy gardens, painting the rocks. We do that like in the summer. It's dog days of summer in July. If you bring your dog to the museum, you get to get in for free. And then we also do a lot of programming specifically for children. We have a summer history camp. You guys are probably a little old to come to summer history camp, but you're not too old to volunteer to be a volunteer counselor. We always need camp counselors, so if you're interested in that, please let me know, and we'll let you know. It's usually the first week of June. We also do Photos with Santa. That's coming up soon. We just finished our Haints and Saints historic walking tour. That's always the end of October, and Woodbine Historic Cemetery is located across the square from the museum. So this year's theme was Politicians and Pioneers. And you start at the museum, led by a guide carrying a lantern in period attire, and then they walk you through town, point out some things about the history of the town, and then go into the cemetery, and the Jefferson's past residents are brought back to life, and their rich history is covered. It's really it's not a scary thing. It's a historic living history weekend. And Doctors' Day is recognized on March 30th every year, and a lot of doctors don't even realize why it's that date. It's because March 30th was the day that Dr. Long did the first painless surgery. So it started, the first Doctors' Day was recognized in Barrow County, and then in 91, I think, President Bush declared it a national holiday. So it is recognized nationally. So every year the museum recognizes it, and we typically have the museum staff or volunteers that will wrap the red carnations, that's a symbol of Doctors' Day, and deliver them to our local providers, medical providers. But because of COVID, we were restricted and not able to go into the hospitals or the clinics. So this year we actually did yard signs that said Happy Doctors' Day, and we went around and put them outside of the hospitals and the different medical offices. And of course we could always use help with that too if anyone wants to help go deliver yard signs. But we have a beehive on top of our gift shop. Jefferson is noted as recognized or certified as a bee city. So we have a hive on top of the museum, and we also sell our honey in the gift shop, along with some other things like ether bunnies or Got Ether t-shirts. And then I just finished, I was just telling Mr. David, I just finished doing 3 days of Jefferson Academy brought students through for field trips, and we did 6 field trips a day. We started at 7:30, and they used what we had developed called story cards, and they'd have a set of probably 10 cards with items pictured on it, and then they would explore the museum, find the items, and then turn them over and read the rest of the stories about that item. So usually there's something going on at the museum just about all year long, and that is his signature. So are there any questions? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to ask? And no? Did I put y'all to sleep? I didn't bring any anesthesia, I promise I didn't. So, well, thank y'all for listening to me. I hope you learned something. I hope you'll come visit us at the museum. And I do have some rack cards with me today, and I also have like a little bio. If you ever have to do a report on a famous Georgian, you know who to pick.
Thank you, Ms. Starnes.
You're welcome.
Guys.
You're welcome.
If you will bear with us momentarily, we're going to make a quick transition, and then Mr. Doug Cheek is going to present to us as a representative of the Baines County Historical Society.